Well, good morning and welcome to another Monday Masterclass. This one's kind of special because I'm going to be quiet for most of it. And I'm really looking forward to it, not just because I'm going to be quiet, but because we've got Scott Burleson, who's going to talk about 7 gambits for interviewing. And just a quick story, I don't want to embarrass Scott too much, but I remember he's been with us, I think it's been 6 years now, Scott, but I remember before, is that it? Yeah. I remember before you joined us, you were one of our clients, and we were doing a blue belt training course, and you were there, and we had these breakouts. And I thought, who is this guy? He's just nailing this probing. We actually had a little contest, and he was just like running circles around everybody. And so he's going to share some of his tips. Now, also, I should tell you that Scott, before he joined the AIM Institute, he was with the Strategy Institute. He used to teach a lot of the interviewing methods there and has amassed some wonderful, wonderful skills. So we're in for a treat as Scott shares with some of his favorite tips on interviewing. So Scott, with that, I think I'll be quiet, sip on my coffee from time to time and enjoy what you've got to cover. And by the way, we'll do this for about half an hour, and then we'll open it up for any questions you've got, even outside of this topic. Thanks, Scott.
You bet. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for attending. You know, this was something we started last year, the Masterclass series, and it's just really interesting for us to get to know the folks that have a higher level of interest, that are really serious about becoming the best blueprinting practitioners they can be. Now, I'll tell you, some of the things that I'm sharing here today, before I actually published a few things about them last year, but as I was doing so, honestly, I was thinking, you know, I felt like these are some of my real little secrets, some of them. I was like, do I really want to put this out there? But I decided, why not? Let's do it. All right, so let me end this slideshow, and we will start in Blue Help. We'll start in Blue Help. And so, by the way, to the topics, so 7 gambits for to uncover more customer outcomes. You know, you're having the discovery interview with your customers. What's the goal, right? The goal is to uncover as large a set of new outcomes as you can. And within the blueprinting training, of course, we've given you some amazing tools to do that, right? We start with what problems do you have? That's a very rich question in of itself. In fact, we even talk about today some reasons why that's such a great question. Then we'll talk about, what would you like to see in your ideal world? And then we have various trigger maps you can create to uncover even more ideas. But keep in mind, the blueprinting system and the methods, those are made to be taught so lots of folks can execute them. So that's the reason we don't necessarily go into all of these additional techniques. But I'm gonna go to show you my most secret of secret things. Some of them aren't really that secret. I'm probably overplaying it a little bit. But we have these all within everything I'm going to talk to you about today. It's in the Blue Help Knowledge Center. In fact, we're going to use that to uncover it. Now, if we were going to search for this today, if we were to put in discovery, all caps there, if we were to put on discovery interview, turns out we've got a lot of articles about discovery interviews. And so we're probably going to want to look a little bit deeper. If we try outcomes, that should probably get us a little closer. Let's see. Right here, 7 discovery interview gambits to uncover more outcomes. So select that. And you could also find this, by the way, by going within the categories. But for most, we believe that going to using the search bar will help you find what you need the fastest. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go through each of these 7. But I'm going to need a little audience participation from you. Now, as the starting point, as you were going to do any of these discovery interview gambits, we're assuming one thing. We're assuming that you have selected a great topic that your customer is interested in, and you have the right topic. And by topic, I'm really referring to the customer's job to be done. And I'm not going to take you back through the searching mechanism, but we have another article on how is jobs to be done used in practice. And so you want to take some time, make sure you've selected an appropriate job for your audience. Now, once you've done that, each of these will fall right into that mode. Now, as I'm going to do these, this is where I am going to need a little audience participation. So before I even begin with number one, do I have a volunteer to be my interviewing customer? I won't bite. Riel.
It is a Monday morning, so we have to give him a few extra seconds on this one.
It is a Monday morning. Let me put it this way. Who has a New Year's resolution they'd like to share? Because that really will be a job to be done. Tell you what, Dan, I'm going to pick on you.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, I'll be it. I'll be it.
I'm going to pick on you, Dan, and the rest of you can see, you can kind of get a sense of what we're going to do here. Dan, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I do. By the way, we haven't had this conversation, so this may or may not be a surprise to you. But my New Year's resolution is to have a more balanced input of media. So, in other words, looking across a spectrum of news sources and making sure I'm not hearing just from one news source. That's my New Year's resolution. That's a weird one, I know. It's not right up there with cutting out of chocolate, but you know.
Oh, that's good. Could we phrase that as consume a balanced, consumed a balance of resources?
Perspective news, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now once we've got,
or how about this? Consume news in an unbiased fashion, or seek unbiased news sources, something like that.
Beautiful. So consume unbiased news sources. We'll go with that. Now, once we have that, now we're going to use that with this first gambit. And the first one was, it's outcome-driven innovation probing. It's straight from the work of Tony Olwick, who created outcome-driven innovation. We've cited Tony's work in a lot of places. And so Tony has three primary areas that he probes around: speed, stability, and output. So for speed, what makes accomplishing a job what time consuming or slow? For stability, what creates errors? What might be some sources of errors or imperfections? And for output, what limits your ability to accomplish this job faster? Now, some of these, for all these gambits, some will work better than others with certain job statements. But again, Dan and I did not rehearse this ahead of time. So let's just try a few of these out. And Dan, hopefully I'll be able to remember that job statement. So for the speed, so if I was interviewing Dan, what makes it time consuming to consume unbiased news sources?
Well, this is really interesting conversation, because this is all, you're helping me think it through a little bit here too, Scott. But one of the things is that I've come across is separating the actual news from the opinion. You know, it's pretty clear on a newspaper, you're going to get the news in the front and you have to go several pages back to the editorial section. It's not quite as clear if you're going out on the internet and looking at Reuters or Fox or CNN or something. So one of the things I'm doing this now, is spending a little bit more time on the news and spending less time on the opinion. There's some valuable opinion, but that actually speeds things up. You can spend a lot of time looking through opinion and never get the actual news.
Beautiful. So for all of us there, listen to that outcome that came out. It would be something around minimize the time to separate news from opinion, or perhaps it's minimize the amount of time to determine what's an opinion, or minimize the amount of time to find opinion-free news, or something like that. But just with that question, what makes it slow? Boom, we got right to an outcome. All right. Again, we did not rehearse this prior to today. It's probably obvious.
I should have picked something simple like exercising or cutting back on desserts. But so I had to do something weird. But go ahead.
You know what? I like the weird. It's the weird that helps us really to understand understand these probes a little better. So I love the weird. All right. So let's try stability. Dan, what can go wrong when you're trying to consume unbiased media?
Well, you can easily lose your perspective if you lock on to one media. And so what I've done is I do a sampling of multiple media to avoid that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, so we can lose perspective. So we might have an outcome like minimize the likelihood of losing perspective. And we might probe a little
Yep.
bit more about what perspective means. All right, let's get, and again, some of these will work better than others. So Dan, what keeps you, let's see, so the output's a little different. What keeps you from consuming the amount of unbiased media as you would like?
Well, it kind of ties into the last point. Here's what my experience personally, what I've seen and at least observed or think I've observed in others. It's very easy to get into a rut, right? We go to a certain news source and then boom, that's what we watch. So what I'm doing, I've got about 10 different news sources. I look at Economist, Wall Street, a whole bunch of different ones. But on a practical basis, what I've done is I've done some research on what is viewed by the right and the left as the most neutral. That's hard to come up with, but it's actually Reuters. It's a UK-based firm that's very neutral. So my practice is to start with Reuters and then go to something on the left and something on the right, or something on the right and left. I actually alternate those. So, my normal consumption for quick is Reuters, Fox, and CNN, or Reuters, CNN, and Fox, and that's just a way of kind of getting a balance. If I don't do that, so when you do that, interestingly enough, you get shocking different perspectives as you go from the right to left and left to right. And so I think having a spread of sources is helpful for me.
Beautiful. So for the folks at home, I want you to notice something, how little I asked, how few words I used, and how much the richness of information that we got. And so right there is something that minimized the amount of time to, oh, anyway, I won't go through all the outcomes right now, but with each of those, I asked a simple question. What makes it time consuming to consume unbiased information, news? What can go wrong when trying to consume unbiased, and what limits your ability to do that? And just from those three questions, the percentage of time that Dan was talking and sharing gave us so much we could have just gone deeper on. All right, thanks Dan for being our guinea pig on that one.
You betcha.
Now, so the second gambit is called, by the way, that's a very rich one, that first one. So the second one I call chronology. And do I have another guinea pig for this one? Or Dan, we might just be planning out all your looking through all your
Thanks a lot, guys. It's fine.
We'll give everybody 15
That's funny.
seconds. If nobody jumps in, then Dan, you'll be it again.
I'm fine. It's fine.
All right. Okay, we'll go there. All right, Dan, tell me about a hobby you have.
A hobby. Well, running. I like to go running.
So, by the way, I'm asking about this just to uncover a different job to be done. That's the only reason I asked about that. So running.
Yeah.
So Dan, tell me about the process of learning to run.
Well, it's interesting. I ran the traditional way for 2 decades, which is heel first, and then one of my blueprinting class learners, Margot Beasley, told me about something called good form running, which is a mid or front foot strike. So you don't run on your heels anymore. And so I know you think, well, we all know how to run, right? Well, I had to relearn how to run, and it basically solved some problems I was having with knees and hips and so forth. So I know that sounds goofy, but there's about 4 elements to good form running. But the main one is strike, on the ball of your foot instead of on your heel, which from an engineering perspective, if you think about, if we didn't have all that cushioning on our man-made running shoes, we would never want to strike with our heel. So anyway, I had to relearn that.
Beautiful. Okay, so if Dan and I were gonna continue this, he mentioned he had problems with his knees and hips. That's right where I'm going to. I'm gonna say, tell me a little bit more about those potential problems with the knees. Tell me a little bit more about those problems with the hips. And what other problems does that cause? And what else has been how else does this technique of heel foot, how else does that make it easier? And so really, this is a gambit because it's an opening question, and that tell me about the process of learning to run. I could have also said, tell me about when I could have asked a lot of questions, but for chronology, just tell me about the process of learning to run. When does it begin? Where does it end? And based on that, we uncovered this about the heel foot. And from there, again, I could probe about knees, hips, and probably lots of other things. And again, the percentage of time that I'm talking versus my customer, that's a good mix. That's a good mix. All right, let's move on to the next one of experiences, which is not that different. It's kind of similar to the chronology. But I'll give everybody. Do we have anybody else that wants to jump in? Otherwise, we'll keep moving in here. Anybody want to play? All right, Dan. For this one, I'm gonna select a job that I know that you've accomplished before, and we're gonna call it plan a wedding. Okay. So tell me about the time you participated. I'll put it that way. Tell me about a time. Okay. So the experiences, by the way, begins with this right here. Tell me about a time that you or when you, and what follows that phrasing is the job to be done. In my example in the article here, by the way, it's about harvesting apples. And so interesting, I use this with all of these. And so tell me about the time that you planted new trees, or tell me about a time that you harvested the apples. But we're going to keep picking on Dan here. And I know Dan has participated in planning a wedding. So Dan, maybe we'll keep this one a little more brief, but tell me about the time that you participated in planning the wedding.
Well, I had the opportunity to do it 3 times. I have 3 daughters, all married now. And it was quite an experience. I didn't get this right away, but after a little bit of thought, I realized here, if anybody else is in this, any other fellows in the same position, there is a certain pecking order, Scott, when it comes to planning a wedding. And I'll just share this with you briefly. We could talk more, but we probably don't need to. The pecking order is actually at the top is the mother of the bride, and then comes the bride. And I won't go through all the other steps, but I will let you know the father of the bride is somewhere just below the flower girls. So you basically you get out of the way, you know what you do what you're told, leave the checkbook out. But I will also say it's a beautiful experience. I'm pretty stoic, and I never thought I would sit down in the pew after giving away my daughter and ask my wife for a tissue. They were 3 beautiful days.
I'm sure of that. And again, there's so much there that I could probe about. I think Dan was using a little humor about the mother, the hierarchy, but my guess is
a little.
Well, what I was about to say is there's humor there, but also some truth probably to what he's saying. It's not totally it's not totally a joke. There's some truth behind it as well. That's probably what I would probe about. But again, always go back to our blueprinting problems, ideal state, triggers. And so, as he mentioned, so we need to go to the hierarchy of mother or bride. What problems does that create if you don't do that correctly, or you get that order mixed up? What errors might you arrive at? Okay, so that's the experiences. So extremes is, okay, so we generally think in terms of averages and normal times, but there's lots of products that we buy that we need, not just for normal times, but for these long tail events. That's the only reason we have insurance. I mean, we have auto insurance, medical insurance, not for things that happen every day, but because of these unusual things. Generators. I live in the Southeast. We have hurricanes, and so everybody has generators in their garage, even though you might only use them once every 3rd year. So with the extremes, we asked this question: what was the worst of a situation, and what was the best in some particular situation? And so, Dan, I know that. Let's see. Anybody else want to jump in, or we'll keep rolling with Dan here? All right, we'll keep going with it. Dan, I know that you play a musical instrument, that you play guitar. So tell me, when you were learning to play the guitar, what was the worst part about learning to play the guitar?
Oh man, my fingers. I had a guitar that fairly high fretboard between the strings and the fretboard. And boy, it's just I only played for a few minutes, and whew, they were really sore. It took quite a while to get some calluses built up. So yeah, that was the hardest part for me. I don't do physical pain real well.
Yeah, me either. Turns out I have an incredibly high tolerance for amazing levels of comfort, though. That's one of my superpowers.
Yeah, mine too.
So right there, we got the worst experience. It's not that different than problems, and we got this finger pain. All right, Dan. So when you were learning to play the guitar, what was the best part of learning to play the guitar?
Well, in terms of the pain, I had a backpacking buddy who once actually bought me a backpacking guitar, and it doesn't sound as good, but the strings are light, it's close to the fretboard, and in terms of I could play that thing a long time before my fingers get sore. So I usually do that a lot. I just grab it off the wall and play a little bit. So yeah, that helps
So
quite a
the
bit.
best part, the best part was being able to play guitar in different locations. There was something about that appealed.
Yeah, I can take it on backpacking trips. It can be anywhere in the house, and I can play it for longer without problems. In terms of enjoyment, the best part is having sing-alongs with my grandkids and stuff like that. But yeah.
I got to tell you, the interviewer in me, it's hard to keep going on to a new topic because I just want to keep probing. I want to keep probing. But hopefully, again, the folks at home, you can see where Dan talked about the finger pain. Man, there's a lot of we could probe there. We asked what was the best part of, and again, I want to keep going back to, this is all framed around a job statement. In this case, learning to play the guitar. What was the worst part about learning to play the guitar? What was the best part about learning to play the guitar? And some of the best parts were the joy of playing it in different contexts, with backpacking trips, also with his family. So we get a couple short questions, we get good information. All right, I'm going to presume, Dan, that you're it.
Well, I think this all started when people were reluctant to step up, but we've now gotten the mode of let's see what else, how much more Dan can embarrass himself. I think we've moved into that mode now, so it's a little different. But yeah, this was not pre-rehearsed, by the way. I guess that's probably obvious. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. All right, now this one's called Magic Ring, and I stole this from Lance Betancourt. He called it was the magic pill for him, and he would use this if he was interviewing he used it in a lot of medical context. If he was interviewing a doctor, if you could give a patient a magic pill, what would that help? What would that help with that customer? Or if you could give them a magic ring, what would that help them to do better? And this is very similar to what we have now in blueprinting with ideal state, but maybe it's a different, sort of a different way of phrasing it. Okay, so Dan, something else I know about you is that you just mentioned backpacking, so we'll go with that. And again, everybody, we're bringing this back to a job to be done. So for backpacking, I'm going to go to planning a backpacking trip. Planning a backpacking trip. That's our job to be done. Well, Dan, if I could give you a magic ring that could do anything, how would that help you to better plan a backpacking trip?
Well, that's probably an easy one for me. I would go much more ultra light. I mean, I've been reducing my pack weight for actually 40 years now, more recently, but as new materials come up, getting that weight out. It's, as you get older, and we were out in the Sierra Nevadas this last summer, and, got some pretty good elevations up there, 12,000 feet. And boy, every pound on the backpack, you feel it, especially as you get older. So I would say the ability to go really ultralight without losing some of the creature comforts that I take with me.
Beautiful. We could go again. We could dig in a lot more into about that. But look how easily we got that outcome. Reducing the weight, minimize the weight. All right. Now I already know the example I'm going to use in A versus B. Now A versus B might be my favorite. Why is it my favorite? Well, first of all, what is it? Okay, so you begin with a job to be done, and for 6, Dan, I'm going to give you a second to even prepare, think a little bit. the job to be done is going to be make coffee. Because Dan and I, we have a lot in common, really, outside of work. We have a lot of personal things in common. One of them, we both enjoy a cup of coffee every day. So that's going to be our job to be done here, make coffee. Now, so once we start with that job, A and B are solutions. We're going to think of one product that we use for one type. We're going to use one product we use to accomplish that solution, and another product that we might use to accomplish that solution. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to change from making coffee. I thought of another one because no, we'll stick with making coffee. We'll stick with making coffee. Okay, so Dan, as a coffee enthusiast, tell me a couple different solutions you use to make a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I like Starbucks, and so for quite a while, but I don't want to run off to the store every time. So for quite a while, I was using little Via packets, and the key there was speed and one serving. I don't want to. I usually just drink one cup of coffee a day. So speed and one cup, and that was working. But after a while, I don't know if it was me or the quality went down. I wasn't happy. But they have an espresso is used a lot in Europe, and when we do workshops, I love a good Nespresso machine. So they make these little 1-unit Nespresso makers, and so now I use that. And here's the thing I really like about it, Scott. I don't really like the full Americano, the normal American coffee. It's kind of weak. But frankly, the espresso is so strong for me. By the time I put my little bit of cream in, it cools down, and there's not enough of it. And this Nespresso maker will do an espresso, but it'll also do something a little bit more water, but not all the way to Americano. I wish I could tell you what it's called. I can't remember it, but that really works well. So that's my answer now. An espresso machine with the larger. It's like a 4 ounce to 5 ounce cup. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So we got two solutions: Via, which I believe is instant, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Via, instant, and an espresso machine. So once I have those two, and Dan actually already answered this a little bit, I would ask, why would you? But I'll ask it anyway. Why would you? So we go back to the solutions. Why would you, when making coffee, why would you prefer Via over your machine?
Well, I preferred it at first because it was fast, but now there's every advantage is with the machine now. Actually, it's the speed is just as good, the size is as good, and actually the flavor is better.
So we got all that about the flavor. So the next question would be, why would you prefer the espresso over Via? But apparently this is such a superior solution.
Oh, it's Lungo. How do you pronounce that? Lungo?
It's Lungo.
Lungo. That's it. I didn't know how to pronounce it. And I couldn't remember it. Yeah. It's very good. Sorry,
no
Scott.
Problem. So for this one, I want to do one more. I want to do one more here, and that's something we all have to do from time to time, is to obtain a diagnosis. And so this time I'm going to give you the solution. One solution is Webmd, and I don't know if this is international, but Webmd, it's a website you go to, you provide information, and they'll give you something of a diagnosis. Another one is we go to a physician, and that's another solution to get a diagnosis. So Dan, why would you prefer Webmd? What advantages does Webmd have over going to a physician when you need to obtain a diagnosis?
Well, I would think speed would be the first thing. I can get there really quickly. Don't have to schedule it weeks out and so forth. And also, I feel like I might get the prognosis and some quick information from an actual visit, but I can learn a lot more about the background and get more questions. I have more time to absorb it. So in some things, I think I would prefer with the WebMD, like along those lines.
So we got speed, we got the depth of information, and we could probably keep probing there. And now we ask it the other way. Okay, Dan, when you need to obtain a diagnosis, what are some advantages that exist with going to a physician as opposed to a WebMD?
Well, I think the diagnosis is the main thing. I mean, I may be guessing I have a certain condition and reading all about it, and I may have guessed the wrong condition. Whereas I go to a doctor, he's going to do tests, or he has other means of really determining what is the ailment before we, learn all about it. That to me would be the big advantage there.
So look at what we have here for outcomes. In the first one, when we ask what does WebMD have over the physician, we get time. We might have gotten something about privacy, and we definitely had depth of information. When we asked it the other way, now we get information about accuracy of the diagnosis. So we begin with the job we've done, obtain a diagnosis. What does solution A have over B? That will give us outcomes. What advantage does B have over A? That's why in my opening words here, I say A versus B is deadly in its efficiency. When you ask for what reason would you choose one product over another? Now, in the context of a discovery interview, you might feel like, hey, we're not supposed to talk about solutions, but this is grounded in the job to be done of obtain a diagnosis. We're not asking, what do you think about WebMD, or what do you think about physicians? We're asking, what advantage does one have over the other when obtaining a diagnosis? And the answer to that question will always be outcomes. And I think we got 3 or 4 there so quickly. Now, number 7, I'm probably not going to go through this one as I think Dan has earned his pay for the day. But 7, I think is fairly, it's a situation we all run into, and we talk about this in the blueprinting training. When folks say something, they give us these vague terms. I call it vague perfectas, meaning this vague idea of what they really seek. And they give us word about attractive, comfortable, durable, efficient. One of the big problems with these words is they sound like good outcomes a little bit. I mean, to a newer practitioner, quite frankly, it's like, yeah, I want it to be efficient. Well, I'm going to write that down. I'm going to take that right to our engineers. I want this to be more durable. The problem is it's too vague. We don't quite know what it means. And so the gambit is what you do when you are given one of these vague terms. And if somebody says they would want something to be attractive, ask them, well, what makes it unattractive? If they say they want their seat or whatever to be more comfortable, ask them, what makes it uncomfortable? And if you think about it, this is really back to blueprinting the problem's way of thinking, right? There's this thing they want to do. What are all the problems that keep it from being as comfortable as they want? They want it to be durable. What makes it not durable? Again, so it's what are the problems with that? So we won't go through that as an example, but this is something that every practitioner is going to probably have in almost every interview, is you get these vague terms. So when they tell you this positive, vague description, I want it to be easy to use. Well, what makes it difficult to use? So we won't put Dan.
Hey, Scott, if I could just jump in on that one. This is a really important one. If you're the note taker and you're in an interview and durable comes up and your moderator says, well, what makes it so it's not durable? Be prepared for multiple outcomes. So be prepared to create multiple sticky notes. There's a little function where you can highlight, it's not water resistant enough, and then click, and you'll see when you highlight it, it'll say, send to the next empty note, send it. And they'll say, and it fades too much. Okay, send that to the next one. And there's too much abrasion. It said, so be prepared when your moderator does this to break these up into multiple sticky notes. It happens all the time.
100%. Yep, great point. Great point. All right, so that pretty much gets us through our 7 gambits. There's a bonus, which isn't really a gambit, so I couldn't call it that. But it's this idea of SQLA when you're asking questions. Which stands for short question, long answer. Short question, long answer. I learned this from this lady, Naomi Henderson. And here I've given a reference to her book in a qualitative interviewing course I took from her. I got this acronym from her, I should say. But I love it. It's a great way of thinking, because we really want to keep our customers talking around their job, be done what their challenges are. And as a new moderator, as a new interviewer, if you find that you're asking your question is longer than the response, then that's a hint that we're off base a little bit. So just that this bonus one's not so much a gambit as something to keep in mind. We want to keep our questions relatively short, but that they invite long answers. But I'll say, if we stay grounded in the job to be done, and then just to briefly go back through what we have here, we stay grounded in, planning a wedding. What makes planning a wedding slow? What can go wrong? What limits our ability to plan? That's a good example of one that might not make sense, the output. But anyway, as long as we stay grounded in the job to be done for all of these, whereas we are in the customer's world, it's a job they're trying to accomplish. They will have a lot to say about it. Dan, any final comments you can think of?
No, that's it. I think you ran us through all the topics I could have imagined and even more. But I love these gambits. These are great ideas. I'd encourage everybody to come back to this and look it over a little bit. Let's just show them where, in the big scheme of things, if you go to discovery interviews, I think this is down in the probing. Why don't we just click on that just for a minute here? Yeah, click that. Now just watch as Scott scrolls down. Some of the first stuff, how to plan, how to prepare, convincing, how to handle. This is like the early stuff, right? And then how to conduct. These are kind of fundamentals, digital projector, tours, debriefing, get your salespeople on board, using distributors, going down the value chain. So, and web conferences and trade shows. Think about those as kind of like the basics, and then some of the different ways different settings you might be in. Then we get into the skills, listening and probing, okay? And so now when we get into probing, that's where you'll find this. So if you're still thinking about some of the basics and some of the some of these what if I'm at a trade show? What if I'm in a different global culture? Check out some of the earlier ones. But if you want to really work more on some of your skills, the one on probing is good. The next one is also quite good, which is on economic data. How do you probe for economic data? And then the rest of them, now we go in one level deeper. Current state, must-haves, top picks, trigger maps, outcome statements, okay? So I don't know if that makes any sense, the organization. But the other thing I'll say, and Scott, I think we might have mentioned this last year, is we will have a a blueprinting certification program, probably by the end of this quarter, beginning of the next quarter, and a blue belt certification. There will be 4 exams for the blueprinting certification, 7 exams for the blue belt certification. 100% of the questions for all those exams will be coming out of the blue belt. So, it's not a bad thing if you want to poke around here, build your skills. If something's missing, let us know. Every time we do a Monday Masterclass, we make sure first our content is in the blue belt. So that's all I have on this topic. Any questions on this fine work that Scott has done on these interviewing gambits that we want to talk about? And then we'll open it up for anything in general. Any questions, anybody? All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys here. Scott, I really appreciate what you've done here. A lot of work putting this together. Great to be sharing some of these skills, these tips you've learned over the years. Something we can all apply in our interviews and keep getting better and better. And I just want to I'll close by just giving kudos to the people attending here. Scott, you and I both notice this, but more and more companies are coming to us saying, we're looking to hire somebody, and we want to know somebody who really knows how to understand customer needs. Do you know anybody?
Yes, sir. Let's take a look. So this is today. Dan, maybe you can take us through what we have coming up on January 25th.
You bet. New innovation metrics. So the vitality index is the percent of our gross revenue that's coming from new products as introduced in the last 3 or 5 years. It's the leading metric. It's been out there since the late 80s. And it's a good metric. Don't throw it out, but it's terribly lagging. By the time you make a change in your interviewing practices, what are you going to do? Wait years and years before you see how it worked out with your gross revenue? I mean, it's like turning up the thermostat and waiting a week or more for your furnace to come on. So we're going to go over several problems, 3 major problems of the vitality index. We're going to talk about 4 things we should have in better innovation metrics, including making them leading. And then we're going to talk about 2 innovation metrics we've come up with at the AIM Institute that are very easy to implement. You may want to take back to your companies. So that's what we'll cover on January 25th.
Beautiful. And so, we hope you can come to this website. Hopefully we send you the reminders, but you can actually come here anytime and add, you can look and see what we've got out in the future and add any of these to your calendar. And of course, as you probably know, for anything you missed, we have all the recordings here. I have the recording for today up later in the week if you'd like any of your colleagues to see what they missed.
Great. Well, Scott, thank you for some fine work. And for everybody who showed up, thank you for being with us. We'll look forward to seeing you in, I guess, 2 more weeks. If you have any questions, you know where we live, just drop us an email. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday and a great week. So thanks for joining us. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody.